Well, Israeli soldiers fired warning shots towards Syria on Sunday after a Syrian mortar shell hit an IDF post in the Golan Heights. 3 other mortar rounds landed in the territory claimed by Israel on Thursday. Sarah Seidner is live for us in CNN Jerusalem with more about this shelling that took place today. Sarah.
Well, Natalie, look, here's what's been happening. Over the past 8 or so days, there have been several incidents where the war in Syria has spilled over into the Golan Heights and into the demilitarized zone between Israel and Syria. What we saw today were more mortars coming over into the Golan Heights. For the first time, though, Israel has responded by firing shots into Syria. They say they are warning shots. They have also called up the UN and made a formal complaint. This is the 4th incident in the past 8 days where some of that war that's going on, the civil war in Syria, has actually affected the Golan Heights. The first was on last Saturday. There were 3 tanks seen in the demilitarized zone. This is the no man's land where there aren't supposed to be any Israeli soldiers or any Syrian soldiers, but tanks did enter the demilitarized zone, though the tanks were pointed towards Syria and fired towards Syria. Then there was an incident where an Israeli military jeep was hit by bullets coming from Syria. Nobody was injured. There was also a mortar that fell, and this is the second time that a mortar has fallen into the Golan Heights. So far, no one in that area has been injured by the war in Syria, but it is, of course, of concern to Israel, and they say that they do not believe they're being attacked. They would have a much different response if they thought that the Syrian government or the rebels were trying to attack Israel. They do believe this is Syria's internal war spilling over into the Golan Heights. Natalie?
That must be still creating some tension for the government watching this and for the people trying to figure out what's going on as well there. What's been the reaction?
That's true. The Prime Minister actually mentioned it today when he spoke. He talked about what is happening in Syria, that they are watching it very closely, but he also talked about what has been happening in Gaza. There has been a lot of rocket fire, several deaths, 6 people killed in Gaza, 4 soldiers injured, and several civilians injured after there has been a back and forth rocket attacks from Gaza. It started with an attack on an Israeli tank where it was targeted by a group in Gaza that fired into this tank, injured 4 soldiers. Those soldiers, 2 of them in serious condition because of shrapnel wounds. That ended up getting a reaction, of course, from Israel. They fired back into the same area where this anti-tank missile came from. That ended up hitting a funeral home. There were several civilians, of course, inside that funeral home. 4 people were killed there. Then overnight, rockets kept coming over from Gaza into Israel. They had wounded several civilians with shrapnel. Israel responded with airstrikes, killing 2 militants in the area where they believed there was weapons and where some of those weapons were being fired. Natalie?
All right, Sarah Seidner for us on these 2 fronts. Thank you, Sarah, live from Israel for us.